Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 2018 action horror film, Overlord. Now, this is the last film that I saw in the theater for 2018, and it was honestly the last film I really was curious about seeing from this year. And I'm glad I gave it a watch because I liked it. I liked the film quite a bit. It has its flaws. For one, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more action, a little bit more carnage, a little bit more sequences with the Nazi reanimated corpses and stuff like that. But for what it was, I thought it was a satisfying, really fun throwback. This is a film that I felt could have been easily made in the late 80s or early 90s. And it was really refreshing to see a film like this again in the theater that wasn't taking itself too seriously and was more of a throwback to the action horror films from the past. This is definitely the best Nazi zombie film I've personally seen because a lot of them are just garbage. They're either super low budget or they're just exploitation films. That's really all they are. The only other one I thought that was decent that kind of surprised me was The Outpost. But I would definitely say this was better than The Outpost. And this is definitely better than stuff like Zombie Lake or the Dead Snow films or a similar film that has a similar sort of concept, Frankenstein's Army, which was disappointing. So this film was directed by Julius Avery, and before this he just directed a crime thriller called Son of a Gun. And unlike a lot of other directors, he really did seem like he was a guy, after watching this film, that this type of movie was always in his wheelhouse. Some directors, when they do stuff that is not like their previous films, they're out of their comfort zone. It's like they're in the middle of a wasteland or a snowstorm and they can't find their way. And that's not what happened here with Julius Avery. I thought his direction was quite impressive, especially for the low budget that he was given. I thought he did an excellent job directing the action sequences and any sequence that needed to be suspenseful or freaky or any sort of the horror elements. I really thought the guy did a dynamic and a dynamite job with his direction. The screenplay by Billy Ray and Markel Smith, there are some aspects of it that could have used some improvement in terms of like adding some more things for the zombies or the reanimated corpses to do. Or just having more stuff with them in the script. A little bit more action probably would have been to the film's benefit. But one thing I really liked about the script that I wanted to mention here is the fact that it keeps the origins of these corpses, of these zombies, under wraps. It makes it vague and leaves it up to your imagination, and I love that about it. I love that it kept it a mystery. It didn't explain it to you. It just kind of led you to believe that there might be some supernatural thing going on with it, but that's as far as it went. And I really appreciated that because most of the time a film like this will just spell it out for you, and I appreciated that the screenwriters didn't do that. That made some of the things even more horrifying. I didn't mind the fact that I know a friend of mine didn't like the fact that there was like this monster, this like corpse of like this sort of creature that was found in the forest early in the film. He didn't like the fact that they didn't go back to that later. On the other hand, I like that. I liked it a lot because it just added to the mysterious aspect of the threat that these soldiers were facing. I like the fact that we didn't ever really figure out what that was. It just left it up to your imagination what that creature was and how it came to be and how it got there. But that's just my personal preference. I have no issue with anyone that has a problem with that or feels differently about it. I would have liked to have seen maybe a different monster later on, Maybe not the same one, but maybe a different one. And I can understand the criticisms of not seeing more of the creatures, but I think part of that definitely had to do with the budget. It only cost $38 million, and you could see a good chunk of it was probably put into that opening sequence alone, and to a few of the other bits in the movie. I was really impressed with a lot of the effects in this film for a $38 million budgeted movie. Industrial Light and Magic I think they lent a hand in some of the effects. The opening sequence is really impressive in terms of putting you right in the middle of a firefight, in the middle of the sky, while, you know, and then the whole sequence where the lead jumps out of the plane in a parachute, and there's explosions everywhere. That was one of the most effective sequences I've seen that have dealt with that type of scenario in any war film, and that was really impressive. The sound design, especially in that, really puts you in that scene. And in the theater, it was loud, and it was really rattling, but it fit perfectly, because that's what that type of scenario would look like and feel like. That it would feel like that. It would sound exactly like that. So I appreciate the fact that the sound designers and the sound editors, they actually did try to be as accurate to that situation as possible. And going back to the effects, there's actually a good amount of practical effects in this, which is a welcome surprise. There a good amount of the zombies are practically done. There's a good amount of actual blood. It's not CGI. There's a few scenes that are CGI blood, but there's other ones that aren't. So it was a nice change of pace, especially nowadays, to see some actual practical effects in a horror film on the big screen in the theater. So it's based on a story by Billy Ray, and I'm not really gonna go through the plot, because you know, you can do that by just going to Wikipedia or just looking at a synopsis. The main thing is it's actually a pretty simple plot line. It takes place in World War II in Germany. These soldiers, they're tasked with blowing up a certain German. I think what it is, it's like it's a tower. So they're tasked with blowing up a tower. That's their mission. But then they discover that there's something else going on in this particular German town. There's this German SS officer named Waffner, who's this total asshole who tries to rape one of the women who I think she's a double agent. I don't think she's a double agent. She just works for the other. I'm trying to remember what. Yeah, she's. I'm looking up her name, her character here. Are they really not going to list her here? Oh, it's a French civilian. Yeah, Chloe. She's a French civilian, and it also seems like she's also kind of into a little bit of like resistance stuff against the Nazis. And Waffner tries to rape her. The soldiers aren't having any of that, and they essentially leave him for dead. He finds a way to escape, though, and eventually a couple of the soldiers end up in this secret complex where the Nazis are doing experiments on dead bodies. And there's quite a few disturbing images in the film. There's one where it's just this head with it's just a woman's head with like her spinal cord sticking out, and she starts talking to one of the soldiers. That was pretty creepy. It was all done practically too. It wasn't CGI. At least it didn't look like it. And then there's like another soldier that apparently they just keep walled up, literally. The only place you can just look through a little hole into some concrete to see what's going on. And there's this serum that the SS has created that can bring to life corpses and also make them super strong and almost immortal. Now, the SS officer, Waffner, he gets his ass kicked so badly that he's left for dead, so he takes this for himself and becomes this inhuman living beast. And now it's up to the soldiers, these World War II soldiers, these U.S. soldiers, to just not only take out the tower, but also take out this growing army of SS soldiers that are, in a lot of ways, super soldiers. I honestly think this film has more in common with Universal Soldier than it does with a zombie movie. Because they're soldiers, they're dead, but the corpses are being reanimated, and they're super strong and they're hard to kill. They're like Unisols, but it's a horror version. The film also has a lot of video game elements to it. A lot of critics have said it's like a Resident Evil movie done the right way, and I can definitely see that. It reminds me of Wolfenstein, if you remember that game. A little bit of Doom at times, especially with the camera work and the direction. And that was a welcome change of pace to see in a film like this, where it has sort of a first-person shooter perspective. I thought that added a lot of extra thrills and excitement to the action sequences, especially the climactic one, where the lead is trying to escape the compound while it's exploding. It seemed like it was like watching somebody play through a level in a video game. It was that well represented in terms of that particular perspective. Now, the cast is full of a lot of unknowns, which was also a refreshing thing to see. A film in 2018 that is not throwing out big names just for the sake of big names. The biggest name here, you could argue, is Bokeem Woodbine, and he's barely in the movie. Other than that, you got a lot of fairly unknown actors. You got some young up-and-comers like Wyatt Russell, Kurt's son, and some other actors like that, but for the most part, you have a cast that's made up of unknown actors and actresses. Jovan Adepo, who plays the lead in the film, Mathilde Ollivier as Chloe, John Magaro as Tibbet, Pilou Asbaek as Captain Waffner, Gianny Taufer, who plays Paul, Chloe's younger brother, Ian D. Caestecke as Morton Chase, Dominic Applewhite as Jacob, Jacob Anderson as Dawson, Erich Redman as Dr. Schmidt, the head of experimentation on the civilians and the German soldiers. So a lot of the cast is comprised out of actors and actresses who haven't really done that much. Wyatt Russell, at times in this film, really did remind me of his dad. And that was a good thing, because he had the physical presence that his dad had, and he had the charm and the charisma that his dad had. And there were so many scenes in this where you could see Kurt in Wyatt's performance. And that really led me to want to see more. I want to see Wyatt get more roles after this. I thought he did a pretty solid job here. I felt that the writing at times, though, kind of made his character look a little bit bad, especially when he would not stop hitting Waffner with the brass knuckles. That really made him look... didn't really make... It made him look like a villain. It made him look... Not really like a villain, but just made him look like kind of a vindictive, blood-hungry asshole. Made him look crazy. And I don't think that was the best decision to make there. That's just one little nitpick I have with the script in that instance. Especially with his character. His performance at times is really good, but at other times it seems like he isn't able to consistently capture the type of badassery that his father does and makes look so easy. Because at times he's able to do it quite admirably, and then at other times it just isn't there. So I think he's still learning as an actor. He's still trying to find his way. So I think that's a part of it, because he hasn't really had that many big roles. He was in 22 Jump Street in like a bit role, and I think he's had some TV work, but Wyatt has not really had juicy roles like this for the most part. So he's taking his baby steps here. And it's a nice first step, but he's got a long way to go before he even gets remotely even close to his father's level, if he ever does. But he did a good enough job here that I would like to see what he has to offer. Jovan Adepo I also really liked as Private Ed Boyce. It was refreshing not only to see okay, in this type of film, it's a World War II film, and your lead is a black man. That you don't really see that very often. Also, it didn't feel like it was just trying to fill a quota. It felt like this was the right actor for the job. This was the right actor to play this particular character. He was a very stand-up guy, and it was a character that was, you could place yourself in his shoes, and he was very relatable and likable. Mathilde Ollivier, she was fine as Chloe. She even had a badass moment where she lit a zombie on fire with a flamethrower. John Magaro, who plays Tibbet, who is a paratrooper and a sniper. I'm trying to remember if that's the guy who Rosenfeld and Tibbet create. No, yeah. No, yeah. Tibbet's the skinnier guy, like he's kind of like a. No. Tibbet is Tibbet the. I'm trying to remember seeing if this is the guy. Yeah, Tibbet is this guy. John Magaro. I really liked his character. He was a lot of fun. He's just your typical New Yorker. Had a lot of fun with this character. He had a great personality. The other actors and actresses, they were fine too. Dominic Applewhite as Rosenfeld. Morton Chase, you really felt for him because he's the one that he's a photographer. He gets essentially killed by Waffner, and Ford brings him. Not Ford. Ford's the Wyatt Russell's character. Private Ed Boyce, played by Jovan Adepo. So Boyce brings him back to life with this serum, and then he really felt bad for him because this is not good. Like, you get brought back to life, but the price that's paid is really high. The effects in this sequence where his whole neck like bends backwards and his spine breaks and all this other stuff, really intense. And some really well done effects, especially for a film with such a low budget. And reminded me a lot of The Thing in some aspects with the whole body dysmorphic sort of changes and stuff like that. And Waffner, played by Pilou Asbaek, is a really intimidating adversary. He reminded me a lot of the character that was the main villain in Pan's Labyrinth. It reminded me a lot of that. The same sort of intensity. He also reminded me at times of, a villain played by Joaquin Phoenix, or in some ways, or definitely also of Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon from The Shape of Water, another very intense actor and a very intense performance. This was a guy you definitely didn't want to get in his way, and he was a villain who was unspeakably evil. He was a fucking asshole. You hated this guy, and you wanted him to get whatever was coming to him. So that was a good choice, in my opinion, for the story. They didn't try to make him sympathetic or anything. He's some sadistic, sick fuck SS officer who must be stopped at all costs. And the actor did a really excellent job playing this sadistic son of a bitch. The film has a running time about 110 minutes, and for me personally, I thought it went by at a good pace. I didn't feel it was that boring at all. I could have used a little bit more action here and there, especially in the climax, but there was enough bits of action in between, enough bits of intrigue to keep me involved in the story and in the film. So it wasn't one of those movies where I was like, oh man, it's really starting to get slow, and I felt like I was getting bored. That never really happened with me personally. It also helped that I liked the majority of the cast. It was nice to see a cast like this again, where you have a cast of characters who maybe they don't have the most character development, but they make up for it with charisma and personality. They're likable. And that goes a long way. See, the thing is, I think a lot of people are thinking that, oh, well, films nowadays, they must absolutely have to have character development, no matter what. And they have to, give you all of this in order for you to be able to care about these characters. But for me personally, I just need to like them some way. Whether it's through character development or through personality, through charisma, through guys who are just, who have stand-up personalities, who are funny, or stuff like that. Just something, that's really, I'm not asking for a whole lot. That's all I really need in order to really care what happens to these characters. And I felt like I got that with this film. So it made the sequences where the film needed to be suspenseful. It made the action sequences all the more exciting, because I really did want to see these characters survive the odds. And it made some of the more crowd-pleasing bits in the film even more fun. Like the sequence near the end where they distract the Nazis at the gate and strap grenades to the guy's head and blow him up. Like that was a crowd-pleasing moment. So, and that happened because you learn to enjoy watching these characters. You learn to enjoy these characters and like the cut of their jibs, so to speak. You like them, and you want to see them succeed. You want to see them persevere. The music by Jed Kurzel is also another thing about this film I thought was noteworthy. Especially some of the main themes I really liked with this film. I thought they were quite memorable. Some bits of the score reminded me of The Thing. Like there even was a little bit of Ennio Morricone's score here, and I don't think that was unintentional. I think that was an intentional sort of thing, because there is some sort of John Carpenter's The Thing aspects to some of the plot. The cinematography by Laurie Rose and Fabian Wagner, that was also quite good for a low-budget production, especially how they shot the corridors and stuff like that in the underground base. The editing by Matt Evans I also thought was excellent. There's a lot of sequences that require a lot of tight cuts in order to really make them shine, and I felt that he definitely did a great job doing that. So I don't really know what else to say about Overlord, except I really did feel that this was one of the gems of 2018. It's a shame that it didn't do that well in the box office. I would love to see a sequel, whether it's direct-to-video or in theaters. It was nice to see a J.J. Abrams produced film like this. It wasn't just another Cloverfield tie-in. It was its own thing. I love the fact that it was a World War II setting with the horror elements. You don't really see... I can't really think of one like that has come out in the theaters. I can think of some that have come out direct-to-video, but I can't think of that many that have come out theatrically. So that was a nice change of pace, and that was refreshing to see. In terms of any things that I felt that it could have done better, like I said earlier, would have liked to have seen some more gore, would have liked to have seen some more carnage, some more stuff, especially near the end, because a little bit of an anticlimactic climax, because you have the zombies show up, they wake up finally, and then they just get blown up. It reminded me of the end of Judge Dredd with Stallone, where the clones wake up, but nothing ever happens with them. So, that was pretty disappointing in that regard. So I would have liked to have seen some more action with the clones. Like they do get shot, but at least there's something they do with those characters with the zombies, the zombie soldiers, but it just doesn't seem like a whole lot. And it seems like they kind of blew their budget early and then kind of had to be frugal with the finale. So that's a little bit of a disappointment, but there's some nice stuff in there still. I mean, how brutal the fight is between Ford and Waffner, and stuff like that, and the way that the sequences were shot with the compound exploding, and the lead character Boyce having to outrun explosion after explosion. Overall, I would recommend the film. If you were curious about the trailer, if it sounded interesting to you, if you like throwback action horror films, definitely check it out. Keep in mind though, it's not filled to the brim with action and gore. So if you're expecting like balls to the wall gore and action, that's not the case here with Overlord. It kind of builds up a little bit slowly. It starts out with a bang, and then it takes its time. But I think that's to try to get you to get to know the characters a little bit and their personalities. So I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, it's a film that could have used more action, could have used a little bit more carnage and gore. And I didn't like the way some of the characters were written, but overall, I really enjoyed it, despite the problems that I had with it. So if I were to rate Overlord out of 5 stars, I would give it 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it that much. I really did. I'm definitely going to pick this up on home video when it comes out. And I really would like to see another film from this director with an action horror element to it. I would love to see what he could do with a bigger budget, and I would love to see what he could do with even more chaos and carnage. But anyway, thank you for watching my review of Overlord, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.